noble citizens, we must bypass a life of dormancy and vice to pursue the generative endeavor of a hard day's work. The benefits of these pursuits are not secured by chance or charity, but through the merit of your character and the firmness of your convictions. It is you who are planting the seeds of trees whose shade you know you shall never see.
What's up? We're good. Yeah, we promised we were preparing. We're doing our normal vocal warm-ups of 13 sets of Scared by a Spider, 13 sets of 14 sets of that's what we were doing.
13 sets of the Menendez screams going here.
Yep, Menendez screams going right there. Dude, I have been meaning to tell you that some of your scream likes are truly disturbing to the listener, which is what I want. For the record, for everyone.
For that.
We're here to be a freaky, disturbing podcast, but that's a joke. We're actually here to be sincere and have fun today because we've actually had we were joking about, you know, the conservatives and what a tizzy they're in these days, but we wanted to actually talk about some of the dubs that have been rolling in, starting with obviously the big dub, the big Z, Zohran himself winning the damn New York election. That's right, folks. Everyone's been waiting. We're finally gonna endorse Zohran for mayor. We're finally endorsing. We're finally saying that we approve of Zohran. But I mean, I don't think I'm trying to
dragged our feet
we have
a
been
little bit along the way, but we're not really doing the conservative bit, actually.
No, we're not. No, we're doing the Chuck Schumer bit now.
Yeah.
We're doing the Chuck Schumer bit now. No, we're doing we're old guard Democratic Party elites now, and we're finally coming around to Zohran because Trump did. But,
everybody did.
I mean, before we get to the Zohran,
even Adam
Trump
Friedland
meeting,
had an interview with him. It was pretty good.
Adam Friedland. Oh my God, I love Adam Friedland. We need to get Adam Friedland on the show. This is exactly the kind of show that Adam Friedland would be welcome on. This is a really like a prime space for Friedland, if we're so lucky. I heard he has a huge dong, but I'm trying to start that rumor as a way to get him on the show. So but tell everyone you heard that. So. Zohran, big deal. He won mayor of New York. I mean, like I said, I don't think we've even talked about it on the mic since then, and everyone's been looking for...
Only one time since, and it was in our alternate dark universe.
Right, in the alternate universe where we're...
The non-dark
where we
woke.
run a conservative podcast, and not the anti-woke version of us. But we're woke again, thank God, and that's really where I prefer to be, especially these days, because, yeah, it seems that the politics of socialism and affordability are ascendant, and Zohran is proving that, and it's really, like I said, I don't know if we want to, I don't know if there's anything else, Zohran, you want to talk before we talk about the Trump meeting with him, because I feel like that truly was momentous. But
that buzzword affordability that you talked about, I think we do have to credit him to bring that into the mainstream, and even Trump at times and the Republicans have been thrown off by this messaging and needing to respond to the messaging of affordability.
Right.
And at times Trump has actually taken the verbiage of affordability as well, rather than to deny that there is any issue with affordability, because prices are supposed to be completely fixed now under him. It's been almost a year at this point, and I think overall the polls are now starting to show that people don't believe the prices are coming down, as if that's something that necessarally needs to be brought up to polling.
Thing.
But if you look at it,
the economic data is not there, so that's why.
That's very true.
He's not releasing it
since the shutdown, and we had Caroline Levitt admit that the data is now going to be friend of the pod. Caroline Levitt admitted that the data is going to be permanently disrupted from the time of the shutdown on.
The Democrat shutdown made it extraordinarily difficult for economists, investors, and policymakers at the Federal Reserve to receive critical government data. The Democrats may have permanently damaged the federal statistical system with October CPI and jobs reports likely never being released. And all of that economic data released will be permanently impaired, leaving our policymakers at the Fed flying blind at a critical period.
And she blamed it on the Democrats, but she did admit that the data is not going to be available anymore.
Well, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, too, I just want to say, before we pivot away from Zohran, or before we talk the Zohran-Trump meeting, too, is that people were concerned about Jessica Tisch, and that and like other, I think there's been some like disappointments. But my thing overall is that, one, I think we all need to be ready to blame the party as much as, or lack thereof, as much as the man himself, not to say he's infallible. But then I also think that, like, we should be tempering our expectations with the understanding that, like, he's trying to bridge this massive gap of, endless Cold War propaganda and one of the most propagandized capitalist, like, centers of the world, and trying to, achieve some sort of socialist policy there with a party that's antagonistic to him. So that's the broader point I'm making, is, like, give Zohran a break as long as the Democratic Party sucks shit. So that's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yeah, it really was, for a guy who is constantly being called a political novice and undermined and saying he's unrealistic. Exactly. It really was a masterclass, I think, in getting Trump to really defang his political opponents. And part of it is calculated, I believe, on Trump's part in recognizing, as we joked about, that the Democratic establishment is missing this great opportunity of a populist leader who's got the whole public excited and talking about him. And it's a potential breath of fresh air, new wind in the sail of the Democratic Party. And they're rejecting it and dragging their feet. And so Trump, being smart enough with the political instincts enough to read the room, recognizes the opportunity that it is to try to shake hands and make nice with Zohran early on. And I think that ultimately he came out looking the worse in this interaction. And
what my
Zohran really makes him look... he really dog walks him here, but I think that there was a calculus on Trump's part as to why he would take this meeting up, and many potential reasons, but the one that I just mentioned seems a plausible one.
I honestly think it speaks again to like what a kind of like weirdly canny political actor Trump is in his own way, to be the only one to be in the Republican Party and the Republican president of the United States.
Yeah, he loves showbiz. He loves charisma.
It's very,
and he recognizes a buzzword and marketing. Like there's a tweet of a moment where Trump is looking up at Zohran, and the tweet says, like, find someone who looks at you the way that Trump looks at Zohran.
Oh, dude, everyone, I gotta say.
And it's like, basically no one has ever looked up as fondly at a person as this moment.
It's a great picture if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't been having fun with the Trump-Zohran memes since this meeting that we're sort of talking around, that, like, Trump-Zohran going to the White House and being absolutely beamed upon by the president and being absolutely, like, given every pass, it's awesome.
Because he came from out of nowhere, and he respects that this guy came from out of nowhere and won a big position in a big election.
Yeah.
He can't help but respect that. He can't help but take his verbiage, like affordability, and he can't help but have a meeting if Zohran's going to call the meeting first. And that was, I think, part of Zohran's strategy, to call the meeting and flatter him.
And Zohran played this very cannily too, as he will. But again, to summarize, in case anyone somehow missed it, and if you missed it, please go watch them. Just watch them interact. It's incredible, because it's like nothing. It really is like the single largest W for the single largest public image W for socialism, and I think probably several decades, purely by dumbass accident of Donald Trump being a dumbass who likes winners and hates the Democratic establishment, and knows that this guy is a winner that is hated by the Democratic establishment. So that is good branding in his mind, even if it's absolutely antithetical to his party's interests, and it has thrown his entire coalition into disarray.
His whole party is in disarray. They don't know how to respond to this, and it's because from the top down, if the guy at the top is going to disarm himself and the arguments against socialism and to say, actually, I think I probably would stay in New York and live there still, and I don't think it's a big deal.
Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. He may have different views, but in many ways, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
And another thing he said was, well, sometimes on the campaign trail, we just say things.
Yes, that was so awesome.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't, but she's out there campaigning, and you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of
she's a very capable person, but you really have to ask her about that. But I don't particularly. I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again, and I can say again, because New York was great.
So it kind of becomes, if anyone under Trump's MAGA America First movement wants to criticize Zohran and call it Momdanistan or something like that, it kind of undercuts the whole argument because Donald Trump himself said he wouldn't mind living there.
Yeah.
He thinks Zohran's gonna do a great job.
Yeah.
And all these sound bites that are just really kind of impossible to deny at this point.
Yeah.
That it's like, oh well, it was all cynical, and I think he will do a good job. Actually,
as a north to south show that covers the most elite and irritating sections of both the north and south, i.e. Massachusetts and Florida, I have been endlessly, and I'm not the first
twin
to
poles
the twin poles of America. I have not been the first to notice how strange it is that Donald Trump, the effete New Yorker, has this ability to win over so much of the South culturally, because even with the Southern strategy, it was like, yeah, they were doing racism, but like they weren't being in the way that like Donald Trump is. That's like really fat. Like the man loves Broadway. The man is effeminate in a New York way. That is part of what makes New York great. Is that like men don't have to be
he loves
manly,
show
masculine
business.
men. That's like right, but that's
and there's
that's
a part of him that is
New York.
Inclusive. Very much
Yes.
in like making someone like Kristi Noem the face of Homeland Security.
And that's what's made him so hard to pin down too. Like dumbasses claiming he was pro-gay in his first campaign and stuff. It's not that he was, but he is a sort of hard to pin down person in the classic New Yorker way, and also like tolerant when it's convenient for them, especially in the classic New Yorker way. And this is, not too much shade on New Yorkers.
Yeah, and he understands in an optics way that, like, if you put a woman in a cabinet position, then you take away some criticism that maybe he doesn't like women. Or if you put an Indian guy in as your FBI chief, it helps to take away some potential criticism that you are a white supremacist or something like that. And I think that's been part of his calculus.
Right, but the point I'm getting to as well is that it's like, it's really true as a resident of the southeastern United States that New Yorkers will tell you they're from New York, and especially the worst ones will make sure to tell you and be a big know-it-all the whole time. Like, they can be really annoying to work with in a lot of ways. And it's been fascinating to see that never rubbing off on Donald Trump, as that's so clearly a part of his personality.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you might start to see that break a little more, where people are like, this guy's just, because people really do have a wariness of fast-talking, like, northeastern bamboozlers in the South. Like, that's the part of the whole, like, carpetbagger thing, even if they were, like, a more positive social force in a lot of ways. Like, it's fascinating to see that him just be completely immune from that, and I do wonder if this will break that at any point.
Well, he's become like such a mix of contradictions, and his entire life has actually supported a mix of contradictions, like voicing.
And he's a Floridian.
Yeah,
and he's a Floridian,
being a Floridian
right?
now, although a New Yorker all his life as well. But
as most Floridians are, let me tell you, brother. That's the thing.
For a lot of his life,
sort of
expressing the same sort of, and his grandparents and his father certainly expressed lost Southern cause type mentalities the whole time.
Yeah.
So I think he's always been sort of this mix of contradiction. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I guess we'll see what happens there. But, like, again, if you haven't seen that meeting, watch it. It's hilarious. There's so many, like I said, does he think you're a fascist moment thing? And then Trump being like, yeah, it's fine. Like, there's so many things that are, it's like unbelievable that Donald Trump would catch the shine of Zohran before Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democratic Party in the Senate. One of the craziest moments in American political history in recent times. And then I also, we're going to, since we haven't gotten to convene and talk about this much since it happened, there was a pretty significant election at the same time as Zohran's, where several other seats were won in what seemed like a pretty interesting little blue wave. But there are other developing stories. And I mean, Jay Jones was part of this too. A lot of people were curious what would happen with the Jay Jones election that he seems to have won pretty resoundingly, which is interesting.
I mean, it's pretty crazy that you would have a huge turnout in a quarter election, essentially, like not the midterms, but the quarter terms. And that's what we saw. And if you look across the board, it's almost all Democratic Party victories.
Right.
And polling also at this point is all expressing across the board. Like I think I saw earlier today or recently that 20 of the states that Trump won are now underwater, and all kinds of really crazy all-time low polling statistics, essentially.
Yeah. And we had this outline that's a bit dated now, but it's like part of what was going on in the lead up to that election too is the government shutdown, which has since ended, and we'll get to that. But during the government shutdown, Donald Trump was also destroying the East Wing of the White House in this very public and sad to see way, and then also throwing like literal Great Gatsby themed parties while federal workers are going unpaid.
And making a big public show of the court fight, essentially, over the SNAP benefits and whether or not he had to pay out the SNAP benefits. And, ultimately, so all that was settled.
Into this election.
Part of that was the impetus leading up to the bill that ended the shutdown was many of the courts were actually siding against Trump. And we were seeing ultimately the limits of Trump's power in a lot of ways. And we saw that with tariffs as well, that courts were starting to rule against his broad usage of tariffs and going around the legislative branch as he's supposed to do. But returning.
And it's trying to do with war stuff too, which we will get to. But I mean,
we'll get to all of this, but the general theme
electorally. Give me some electoral stats.
Yeah, the general theme, I think, of this episode, that was one of the points I think that we're going to see overall is that Trump is hitting the limits of his power, and we're really starting to see that now. And we're seeing it with the first electoral results coming back. We saw that immediately after he tried to move to end the filibuster and made it very clear that he's going to go full force in trying to permanently gerrymander elections or to openly rig or otherwise shut down elections if need be. We'll see what ends up coming in the future, but he's made it very clear that he knows he can't win a popular majority, and he's going to do whatever he has to in order to move on from that. And
right, and the Zohran win casts an interesting pall over the centrist Democrat leadership generally, because they really were not betting anything on that and don't seem to have had much strategy overall going into this election. They seem to have been going the classic Carvel possum route and somehow won in spite of themselves in a lot of areas, and then, with their direct resistance being the ones who won in other areas. Like, didn't Seattle, is this the same election where Seattle elected a socialist mayor too? Am I remembering this right?
I believe you're right. I think that it wasn't just one victory for socialist or leftist candidates. I think across the board we're seeing candidates. We're also seeing upcoming elections like Graham Platner.
Yep.
The fact that he has barreled completely through this Oppo research about the tattoos and other things. And it seems that essentially voters are really looking for a populist candidate. And the fact that you just mentioned Carville too is interesting because he may actually be the canary in the coal mine for some centrist thinkers. And he is recognizing, he says he's an 81-year-old man now, and he knows that in the minds of many, he carries the torch of a so-called centrist political era. Yet, it is abundantly clear, even to him, that the Democratic Party must now run on the most populist economic platform since the Great Depression. It is time for the Democrats to embrace a sweeping, aggressive, unvarnished, unapologetic, and altogether unmistakable platform of pure economic rage. This is our only way out of the abyss. Now, this basically sounds like us at this point, and it's like centrist. It's the guy who's responsible for people vote with their wallets, and the sort of centrist 1990s attitude of it's the economy, stupid, and things like that. And he's basically recognizing the death of neoliberalism is here.
I listen to that, and I wonder if even like Graham Platner will keep up with something like that. Leftist icon Graham Platner, which I don't even think we've been on the mic to talk about that whole thing. It was a crazy thing. Yeah, and I guess my final word on it will be, it is the most new, as like we said, we're covering both poles here on this podcast. It is the most dumbass New England-ass thing to have happen to you, to be like, oh, I had a Nazi tattoo for 20 years, and I didn't know about it. It's like, I don't think there's anything more nefarious than, like, he's kind of a dum-dum. Yeah. And this was a dum-dum thing.
And connections to Blackwater or security contractors. That are very questionable. But at this point, I think it's clear that if someone is willing to come out and be apologetic, to get the tattoo covered up and to not pussyfoot around it, and to just say, you know what, I'll get it covered up.
We'll see, right?
Yeah, even if I had ties in the military contractor work, that's part of why I've now come to change, because I saw those atrocities firsthand.
And
if you're willing to come to those terms, the Democratic Party should embrace candidates like that, in my opinion. And it seems that the party actually is embracing that sort of flawed character with a flawed past.
We will see. I give Graham Platner a we will see. There's other stuff that's come out about his relationship to some, but at the end of the day, too, it's like all these like tenuous relationships thing. It just seems like a dum-dum. It seems like a nice guy who's kind of a dum-dum. I know people find this hard to believe, but I promise me, like, New England is truly full of people like this who have like very confused and incoherent political views, but ultimately they might be kind of a good guy in there. So if he is, I'm going to give him a raised eyebrow. I'll give him 2 raised eyebrows. But if he's a good guy, then we'll see. You know, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. And it is the correct thing to do to immediately get that covered up. And you were very early, my friend, on pointing out that the means by which this video was brought to the public's attention are quite frightening and dystopian, and are something that people should be on the aware of too. That this was a
new age op-ed. New technology, AI driven.
Looking through all available video to find an image of this person to find this secret.
Hey, you know how that company is called Palantir, and that's like the evil, all-seeing orb that the evil character looks through and can see anything at any time. It's
None
like literally the panopticon.
Still eyebrow raising. Yes, still very concerning. So that's the kind of thing that's like, if that's what the tool they're using and that is what they find, and then again he like immediately is like, my bad guys, like, I'm sorry, that's a New England story as old as time. I hate it as much as I think he's probably like gonna disappoint us, and probably worse than Zohran. Having like slightly more conservative politicians than the most progressive guys in New York. Classic.
I think
I'm telling
the reality
you guys,
though is
bullshit.
that the fact of the matter is that people who have any presence online, and anyone that we assume to be a real person in this day and age, is going to have something questionable that can be dug up by an AI robot in a fraction of a second, essentially. And so the idea that someone can come through completely squeaky clean is honestly questionable, and you should probably not trust someone who has a completely clean background in today's era. And the fact that someone may have a few skeletons in their closet doesn't necessarily preclude them anymore. And I think Trump brought that era on us of being completely immune, starting with the pussy tapes and being able to barrel through those accusations, that we have reached a post-controversy era, the type of thing that would end someone's career in the 90s.
I wouldn't go that far, and I would say more that like the Blackwater stuff keeps my eyebrow raised, but overall it's like, I think that being being a movement that doesn't eat their own too quickly is wiser than not, and especially since it's not your party, you know.
Strategically apologizing for something is worse. Nowadays, how you handle something is much more important than the substance of what you actually did.
There's things you should and should not publicly apologize for. I feel like accidentally having a Nazi tattoo on your chest is a pretty good one. And like in the world of things to publicly apologize for.
If your response, though, is to look like a deer in headlights and to not have a quick response to brush that off, you end up losing in this era. And that's, I think, what Platner showed, is he could get a quick media response gathered together. There was a couple days of figuring out how to handle it. But as soon as he did, it was like water off a duck's back, that he just got it covered up. He said, if that is a Nazi tattoo, I am so sorry, and I want to cover it up now, and now it's over. That scandal's completely done with. Because they're going to have to find something else to take him down.
That was what was crazy to me, too. Yeah, I agree that like there was something about how swiftly he dealt with it that made me feel like, okay, this guy is just a dum-dum. Because it was like, the thing that to me was like, I don't know, it's like, if this was a secret Nazi person, they got this covered up months ago. You know what I mean? If someone like, there's no person who's shrewd enough to pretend to not be a Nazi who doesn't also think to get their Nazi tattoo covered up. And you know what I mean? It's like, if that's the thing that made me be like, oh, this guy's just like a Maynard dum-dum. Like, that's what's okay. All right, you know what? Tons of them. That's fine.
The reporting I saw was that there was a reason why that video resurfaced recently, like a friend or family member posting an anniversary of the wedding, like it may have been the 5-year anniversary or something like that of the wedding. And so people were watching all the accounts of friends and family members. Essentially, there was opposition, obviously bots, it has to be, that were watching everybody's activity. And as soon as that was posted, it was figured out that would be something that could be used as opposition research, which is pretty insane. Again, getting back to the idea of a panopticon and the all-seeing eye, that's really what
we've been
selling all our data to Palantir is all about.
We've been talking a lot about the wins of the Democrats here too, but I do want to transition to the next topic we wanted to cover, which was the end of the shutdown, which took everyone kind of by surprise And again, we're kind of late to this topic, but it was pretty wild how they were in the winning position, had just won an enormous election, and then decided to capitulate for next to nothing on the shutdown. And the thing that's so wild about it is that, like, for nothing. And the thing...
Yeah, for a promise.
Right, and the argument people have made with hindsight is that they did it to swear someone in so they could release more Epstein stuff, and more Epstein stuff has come out, which we will get to. But none of it seems like it was really worth giving up the position they were in. Like, it still seems like an incredible fumble by all accounts.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you feel on that.
And they've yet to turn it into a moral fight over the right to health care yet. They haven't seemed to figure out that that's something that they should be fighting for as an opposition party, which is ridiculous. And now Trump is proposing his own alternative health care plan, which is basically UBI. And he posted this tweet where he said, "The only health care I will support or approve is sending the money directly back to the people, with nothing going to the big, rich, fat insurance companies who have made trillions and ripped off America long enough. The people will be allowed to negotiate and buy their own, much better insurance. Power to the people. Congress, do not waste your time and energy on anything else. This is the only way to have a great health care in America. Get it done. Now, President DJT." This is like literally like Julius Caesar tweeting out to the people, essentially, but grifting them with something which is sad. Really an alternative to a healthcare plan. And I think that this UBI solution really gives away the game too much, that he's almost coming out over his skis, in my opinion. I hope other people would notice this as well, but
I definitely think this really gives away like that. I agree.
Yeah, when they've been for the last 10 years now saying that they have some alternative plan to Obamacare, which we talked about recently being Romney Care, and even Mitt Romney admitted when he was asked if he thinks he had some effect on creating Obamacare, and he admitted, appealing to his own flattery.
The problem is that, like, healthcare is a problem that neoliberalism simply cannot solve or even propose any kind of solution to.
Exactly.
And these guys cannot even really can't even admit that they're neoliberals to begin with. Like, that's not even, they can't even work from that position.
Yeah, and so we talked about
they're extra double f***ed. Because the thing that I always point out with Obamacare, too, is like...
Yeah, we talked about how Republican wins cancel themselves out. And ultimately,
that was the best idea they had. Obamacare was the best idea they fucking ever had.
Exactly.
And then the Democrats did it.
What they're proposing,
some political masterstroke. And now we're this is where it's kind of bearing fruit.
Yeah, what Obama did with this compromise position is propose their own solution, which was Romney Care. And what that is a subsidy that, yes, as Trump said, goes directly to the big, fat, rich insurance companies because it required them to be at the seat of the table. And they would also support this UBI healthcare plan because what he's describing really doesn't do anything except reverse the order of where the subsidies are introduced. But he's still describing here a subsidy, which means his best plan is still, in the end, a subsidy, which he ultimately has canceled in an embarrassing way right before going live to the press. He actually pulled the plug on this plan because just like with 20, maybe 15 years ago now with the Roadmap to America plan that they drafted, I think around 2008, this was the Republicans' so-called plan for a libertarian utopia. And then as soon as the public saw it, they didn't like the plan. And yet again, it goes back to the fact that their actual plans, once put in practice, are either impossible, unrealistic, demonic, stupidly unpopular. Not what people want at all.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now.
And so they have to play hide the ball until they finally release it. And that's what he's also trying to do now with the UBI. It's like all he can do is provide subsidies again.
Not to give the Democrats of the Obama era any credit for their, political genius to capitulate in advance with Obamacare, because I still think that was a massive blunder for myriad reasons.
But it's like, where do you go from that?
I also can't help but think it occurs to me in this discussion that if they had been more ambitious and had actually established some kind of durable healthcare system, who knows where we would be, like a public option? Who knows what else that could have changed?
Yeah.
But in this moment now, where the Republicans are trying to destroy that system, Obamacare is what they use. Obamacare is the system they use to degrade that healthcare system. But that's all we have already.
Yeah, and then the next iteration that they can come up with after that is UBI, which it reveals that UBI
everyone already thinks is stupid, right?
Yeah, UBI it reveals is actually a scam. And I can't believe I didn't realize this in 2016 when I entertained the idea of it for a while with Yang, of course, who popularized this idea.
I was a Russiagate lib. We all grow.
Yeah, we all grow a bit. I entertained this idea as potentially possible, and I can't really believe it because it's a snake oil that never really promises anything threatening to the status quo. It's exactly as Trump's tweet says here. It's sending money directly to the big, fat, rich insurance companies. And it doesn't matter what order you send that money to, whether you send the checks directly to the people and say, now you're going to hold on to the $2,000 I send you, whether it's every month, every year, does not matter at all. The market is going to price in this basic income that is given to people. And that is not going to solve the problem that is needed for regulation to be able to tell people you can't charge that much for life-saving medication. You can't make a person borrow that much money to pay for that cheap of a pill. And that is the problem, that if you can't actually regulate that in any way, you have nothing threatening in any way to the status quo. And that's exactly why they would offer UBI rather than even something that's almost 100 years old now, which is full employment, which is a social democratic policy. And even that is more threatening to the status quo because it says that the right to a job is actually a right
that the government should provide you.
Yeah, it should be providing, and it's threatening to the status quo and the powerful interests at the time. It was threatening even to say you are owed a right to health care or you are owed a right to a retirement and things like that. That's actually threatening in some way, but that's regulation. And you can't offer regulation, but what you can do is promise this thing that is so appealing to so many people because it's an ask for them to buy in without any agreement yet on what the policy or regulations are going to look like. So you say,
look, but I know you want those things, but you're going to get Imperial Forever War. Okay,
yeah,
that's what we're
it's
getting.
The least amount of regulation possible if you think about it, because it's a regulation that says print money and then do nothing else with it. And of course, as many people as possible will buy into that notion, but that is a scam. You haven't actually said what you're going to do with your regulatory policies once that money is given to people. And so if you just cut people a $2,000 check and say that's a healthcare plan, it's not. It's actually not a healthcare system at all. And that's the problem with UBI.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's the problem with it. And like I said, we're going back to Imperial War. As of, I think, yesterday, they're saying Venezuelan airspace is officially closed. Honestly, there's a lot you and I both need to do to educate ourselves on Venezuela specifically. I don't know anything about it. I know enough to say that it's a bad idea to try and take it over for everyone involved, and it makes me feel very sick to think that that's the next goal of U.S. foreign policy, to try and do something topple Venezuela.
Yeah, I know enough to recognize that a lot of people on both sides are starting to say that we should go after Venezuela, and that's very concerning.
Right, it's very disturbing. And if you think it's going to be good for the people of Venezuela, I have some Iraqi WMDs to sell your dumb ass, because it's going to be a nightmare for, like I said, everyone involved. Being a person in the southeastern United States, I'm very curious about what kind of external effects I can expect in my day-to-day life, Lord knows. But the more important thing I wanted to bring up, too, about that whole goings-on, like I said, airspace is closed, it's getting really hot, it's getting very scary, we're hearing planes all the time, but Gustavo Petro, so the government shutdown ends, they swear in their person, and around the same time, Gustavo Petro, I don't know the exact line. Let me see. I think you have it down here.
Do we talk about why the shutdown ends, or should we? Or?
No, I mean, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we will
it's,
after.
It's because we talked about why the shutdown ends.
The weak, feckless leadership of Chuck Schumer, unable to control 8 senators within his caucus.
And he's clearly lying. Like, he clearly was
he clearly wanted them to. They're also, we should mention, senators who don't have elections in the next 2 years, which is awfully convenient for the rotating villain theory.
Really dirty politics. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you haven't figured out what the Democratic Party is about yet, never forget this moment. And if you do, I'm going to think you're a dum-dum. I'm sorry. It's like, this is what they do.
Yeah, I'm sorry that 8 people who conveniently don't have elections in the next 2 years all decided to time their no vote so that you'll forget about it by the time their election comes up.
And Gustavo Petro is rocking out in Colombia.
Yeah. He's rocking out in Colombia. He's got massive crowds because 3/4 of the country loves the man, just like they do in Mexico with Scheinbaum, because that's what happens when you run on their politics as opposed to Trump's, where you have maybe 1/4 of the country.
So Gustavo Petro's line is, a clan of files wants to destroy our democracy to keep Epstein's list from coming out. They send warships to kill fishermen and threaten our neighbors with invasion of their oil. They want to turn the region into another Libya full of slaves. Mic drop. Banger line. And then not long after this, more emails do come out from Epstein. And is there a lot in those emails? Oh, Marjorie Taylor Greene also resigning too. Just another thing that's been happening in the W's column.
Yeah, and that we should really, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk about the electoral situation going on with the upcoming election. We have.
Well, this is where, like, the Epstein stuff, we were planning to segment this part of the episode a little bit more, but it's like the Epstein stuff is really breaking containment in a major way. It's like my mom is posting Epstein stuff in, like, our family chats. Like, this shit is getting really hard. And it's absolutely a part of why Marjorie Taylor Greene quit, too. So I think it is absolutely prescient to the whole.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene quit, and then a bunch of Republicans actually shortly after that in the House issued a letter saying that they're thinking about quitting. And the reason why was because of the treatment that they've had in the House under Mike Johnson's leadership, that Mike Johnson has had the House shut down for a really abnormal amount of days. And this isn't even like we did do a little political gotcha a few episodes again, but it's like actually debilitating for a person who supposedly works in Congress, and like 3/4 of the days that you're supposed to show up isn't allowed to vote. And it becomes clear that the person running it doesn't want the government to exist and doesn't want there to be a parliamentary government of any sort, or a congressional legislative branch. They don't want checks and balances on the executive branch. So it makes it kind of impossible to do your job. And Marjorie expressed a lot of frustration.
He really should have known
Other ones did. But what's becoming very interesting is that Trump already has a pretty narrow majority in the House.
Right.
And there are several upcoming elections.
Yeah, she really just is spiting them. It's awesome.
Yeah, several upcoming elections now are becoming a shoo-in for Democrats. We have the one with Afton Bain coming up early December. That is a very interesting one, where Tennessee, a district that was a +22 in favor of Trump last election, is now a statistical tie, and Afton Bain, the Democratic candidate, is within striking distance to possibly win this election. And we saw with Harry Enton recently, too, that polls have massively overestimated or underestimated Democratic performances. And that's been a shift since the last several election cycles have actually favored the Republicans. And that was part of their campaigning of saying, you know, the silent majority favors Trump and things like that. That rests on being able to have an undercount and then overperforming expectations over and over. And what we saw in the last election was that the Democrats massively overperformed in some districts by 5 and other districts by 8 percentage points. And so if this continues for multiple elections and you have Democrats actually outperforming expectations, and they constantly try to adjust this as they did after 2016 when Trump seriously overperformed expectations, they start calculating in a hidden Republican turnout factor, and that still didn't compensate over the last several elections, and the Republicans still outperformed. So this is a massive hidden advantage when you are the side that outperforms on the polls. And if you can continuously get that, that is a major advantage to be having as an opposition party trying to come into power. And that's what we saw with Trump ultimately sweeping his way in through the second election throughout his whole real political career. He's been outperforming expectations. And it seems like that we could be hitting the end of the road for that, which is a great sign. And we're also seeing now that this margin...
So the phenomena you're describing is just ending, is what you're saying. So it's like this phenomena you're describing is coming to an end.
It's ending, potentially flipping. And that phenomenon also was the Tea Party effect of the Republican Party, I believe, that they were responding to their base and moving more towards the extreme, which is a big part of what we were talking about in the conservative episode.
You love a tenuous historical parallel, my friend. You love to bring it back to a period not that long ago to make a not that close connection.
No, people are saying we're in the blue Tea Party, and I think that that's true, and I think that comes with the outperforming expectations, and it comes with moving towards your populist base. And
yeah, for sure.
Ultimately, even Nick Fuentes has the conservatives in a thing that he's calling the groyper squeeze, which speaks to this sort of...
I know. I was thinking about this today. Where it's like with the Charlie Kirk stuff.
It's like if you want to talk like 3D chess of politics or something, like a macro level idea of your base is really what is your party. And so if you spend a long time gaining a base by appealing to far-right identity politics that you find deep on the dark webs, aka Nazism, if you want to appeal towards that, you start creating a growing contingency that is Nazis. And at some point, that base becomes so large that you have to either acknowledge it or it's something that is undiscussed and still very much powerful for your motives. And that's what we're finding with a lot of the conservative party right now being fragmented, is they either have to bring up that Fuentes controls a large part of the upcoming movement and the youth, which is so important for the future of a party.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this today. In a similar vein, that like even with the Charlie Kirk stuff, it's like they can't they haven't even been able to make the Charlie Kirk stuff stick as like a real like raison d'etre, like for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But one of them is exactly what you're describing, that the Fuentes base of their party, which is f***ing important for their political project, doesn't want to apologize and wanted that shit to happen. And so they can't turn it into this like big like emotional core to their movement, because part of their movement thought that shit is hilarious. Like, it's
Yeah,
fucking crazy.
and while you have a lot of the party distancing themselves from Fuentes, you don't have Trump doing it, and you actually have Fuentes in the background on his own podcast saying, I am so effective and powerful for Trump's movement.
Not a friend of the pod, by the way.
Not a friend of the pod. A friend of the other conservative pod, but not a friend of this one. But,
I don't even know. I mean, that's why we have Carolyn Levin in the roster. I don't even know. I'm not. The conservative persona doesn't like him either on my side. You do. You're the groyper of the
and so some of the
pod.
party has been trying to distance themselves, but he's been calling the shots from the background and saying Trump can't distance himself from me, or I will tell all of my groyper friends to stop voting for him. And since that is such a large percentage of his base now, he could not afford to lose that. And therefore it goes undiscussed, and Trump refuses to acknowledge it, but it's at least 30% of his base, and he can't afford to lose that base, and he won't openly discuss it either. And that is what Fuentes is calling the groyper squeeze that he clearly has him in. And it's what the Republicans, always projecting as they are, claim that is happening with the left, and for decades they've claimed has happened with the Democratic Party, that the Democratic Party caters to its radical base. And it's like, if that were true, Jeffries or Schumer would have actually shaken hands like Trump was able to do. Yeah, they would have lost their jobs. They would have shaken hands with Mamdani and wouldn't have distanced themselves from him up until the very last moment. They would have shook his hand like a man, like Trump. And these are the kinds of things that basically are happening behind the scenes of quote unquote populist energy that Trump is pretty keen to pick up on.
He's getting squeezed because the groypers are on the one hand saying, hey, listen, fat boy, we want America first. You want to run for president? We want to hear you say America first. And on the other side, he's got his donors, and they're saying they're horrible anti-Semites. You have to disavow them. You have to forcefully condemn them. Condemn Tucker. Condemn the groypers. Why would you condemn the young white men of America and sell out to our elites? We'll be there. We'll be in Iowa. We'll be in every primary and caucus state. So he doesn't want to condemn the groypers. But if he doesn't condemn the groypers, then all the Israel First money is going to pull the plug. And all that money is going to pour into the coffers of Marco Rubio or some other competitor. That's the groyper squeeze. This is politics.
We got sidetracked back into electoralism too, but I wanted to get back to the Kabbalah files, the Epstein stuff, because as we said too, it does tie back to the electoralism in a big way. And one thing I had to discuss before we round out the pod is the most recent tranche of the Jeffrey Epstein emails. They go into it really thoroughly on the TrueAnon podcast, which is a great show. It's always been on the Epstein beat, always one of the best shows to find good information about the entire Epstein saga. And they covered the exchanges between Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Summers really thoroughly on their most recent episode. And I'll tell you, man, if you haven't read these exchanges between Jeffrey Epstein and Larry Summers, take the time. It's unreal the way that these two grown men are communicating with each other about we're ostensibly supposed to be Larry's colleagues. And I mean, overall, it's like the way in which these emails have been just proof that so many of these freaks who are paying Jeffrey Epstein for tax advice or whatever the hell literally just need like the kind of tutelage on girls that lax bros are giving each other in like 15-year-old locker rooms. Like, it's unfucking real how childish and just absolutely juvenile these dudes are in their whole like thinking about women and how to discuss and approach women. And yeah, a lot of the emails pertain to Larry Summers leveraging his position as the head of Harvard to put the moves on some Chinese economist. And this is something that has been slowly unfolding in the Harvard world.
And he stepped down from Harvard recently.
This august institution of American learning has found that one of their most important figures, Larry Summers, one of the key economists of the whole American neoliberal era and a key economic advisor for the Democratic Party, is not just a friend and associate of Jeffrey Epstein, but like a close friend and associate of Jeffrey Epstein. And not just that, an absolute manipulative little freaking freak.
Yeah.
Just a loser. Just an absolute disgusting freaking loser. And I would highly encourage you to, again, read these emails. My favorite thing that they were that Larry Summers in 2018, after Jeffrey Epstein is well established as a fucking pedophile, after Jeffrey Epstein is a well-known public pedophile, Larry Summers is trying to pick up some girl by inviting Jeffrey Epstein to meet them as like his wingman. And it's like, in what world is it like, oh man, Jeff, I need, like, you're meeting a girl, you're like, you know who you gotta meet that'll really get you excited. Well, prominent pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. It's
I mean, he basically considered himself like a James Bond of international relations with the level of connections that he had.
You never need to take these people seriously ever again. I think that's one of the theses of this show, too. It's like Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Larry Summers, James Carville. If you have ever felt that these people were full of shit and you know better than them, but you weren't sure because they held this position and privilege, you can now be confident that those feelings were correct. And these people are incompetent, disgusting, vile, vacuous freaks who deserve nothing but your disdain and contempt, and to have you, to be removed from their position at the bare minimum, and to have that privilege. And ideally, I think Larry Summers probably should have a lot of his wealth seized. I'll be real here. I don't care how he gained these gains. He's got too much. He doesn't know shit. He's clearly
lose it in lawsuits.
Whatever, right? Like,
let it go to the
lawyers.
lawyers.
Whatever reasoning, he needs to be disenfranchised of his significant wealth, because it needs to be. I don't think that we should consider wealth as a metric of like merit in society, but I don't think you should be able to be that wealthy and meritorious and be that fucking useless and stupid and not even capable of having a relationship with an adult woman. I think that should be disqualifying past a certain point. I don't care if you're in one at the moment, you can be single at the time, but it should not be that you are married and trying to cheat on your wife with the help of Jeffrey Epstein or someone like him. That disqualified. Like, you're all wealth taken, all titles gone. You fucking shit. Oh my god.
There were stories of that.
I think hope the Chinese Communist Party would behave in such a way. I don't know. I'd hope so.
Actually, it was Trump took one of his cabinet members out as a wingman at Mar-a-Lago, which was pretty awesome. And he just recently went through a divorce, and he was basically telling people like, oh, this is the most powerful man in the treasury or something.
So pathetic. They're such fucking losers. That's what makes me so mad, is it's like, how can we not beat these fucking dorks? They're such, like Pete Hegseth. Oh my gosh. Oh, you want to be the Secretary of War? Shut the fuck up. I was thinking about this too. It's like, we should do a whole episode or two on the Crusades.
He's going to be convicted of war crimes, I think, allegedly.
He should be convicted of a lot of different fucking crimes.
Did you see recently though? Like, it's more and more the heat is on with he decided to double tap some fishermen who were hanging on to the wreckage, and he actually used the words "no quarter," which has actually been illegal, and the U.S. has agreed to this international law since 1909, but this has been re-signed into different forms of international treaties. The order "no quarter" is explicitly illegal, which means to strike people a second time when they're dead or incapable of surviving or hanging onto wreckage.
I'm not a violent person, but I would love to play a video game with Pete Hegseth where I could stand on his neck with a boot. I would really like to be able to do that to Pete Hegseth in a video game, and that's all I'm saying. And you can't stop how I feel about it.
And the British intelligence just stopped sharing with us. Like, the rest of the world is actually treating it
so
like
sad.
a big deal that we're potentially committing war crimes.
It's a big fucking deal to act like this. It pisses me off. And I was starting to say too, it's like, we should do a whole side episode on the Crusades at some point, because I was thinking about this. Like, there's no sure sign of an absolute monstrous dipshit with repellent beliefs than someone who's got some sort of like Deus Vult or any kind of like crusades fair, because it's like
I'll
it's so
see you in
offensive in so many
Valhalla.
ways. It's so Islamophobic. It's also anti-Semitic, among other things. Like the Crusaders were pieces of shit. So it's like we shouldn't be like valorizing that. There's just absolutely nothing to be
or the
valorized
Department
there.
of War.
So
and they keep taking L's across the world internationally.
Yes, they are.
China just leveraged a Taiwan victory out of Trump's tariffs because we so desperately need them to start buying soybeans now after Trump's playing his hand with the tariffs. And China actually does have serious leverage over us, like the amount of soybeans that they purchase. And so they're saying, we won't buy soybeans now unless you recognize that Taiwan is China. And Trump actually has capitulated on that, just like with the Ukraine ceasefire deal, which is another big deal.
And the Japanese,
quote unquote,
the Japanese are getting pissed about it too. Like the way Japan is trying to gin up Taiwan stuff too. It's like I don't know. I get bleak feelings, but I do think that like the Chinese will handle this Venezuela stuff. Makes me a lot more nervous because there's no force like China in the region to exert any kind of stability, or short of Brazil. Brazil is really like the closest thing that exists in the region to counter this aggression, and that's what really freaks me out. But I don't know. I mean, do you have anything else you want to go out on?
Yeah, I think the Ukraine ceasefire is the quote-unquote ceasefire is a big deal that is going to turn more and more into a scandal.
Yeah, cover it, because I don't know about it. I really don't.
So there is a Russian terms of surrender. There were terms of surrender circulating that ultimately somehow got pulled into Google Translate, essentially, and sent to Ukraine as a quote-unquote ceasefire deal. And that was what Trump was saying was his terms of a ceasefire at the time. And he was bragging on the media saying that there was finally going to be a ceasefire in the war in Ukraine. And it turns out that somehow this was handed through different channels that came through Russia and were actually their terms that only pass through Google Translate, and they match exactly to Russian intelligence after retranslating them back, essentially. So it's very clear that these are Russia's terms of surrender that were trying to be imposed on Ukraine, and now Ukraine has sided more and more with the UN. And ultimately, all of this is distancing us from the UN. We even have, in a symbolic way, with the G20 meeting.
Which is going to distance us from the Europeans. If the British aren't sharing intelligence with us now, too, this Venezuela thing, that's really like... that's something I continue to wonder.
These lines of power being drawn that Trump is basically saying to Russia, you can have Ukraine, and he's saying to Israel, you get to have Gaza. He's saying to himself, I get to have Venezuela and Colombia, and he's saying to China, you get to have Taiwan.
But I'm trying to think of, like, is there any other period... It's like, okay, so a lot of the stuff, like with the sanctions in the early Ukraine conflict, ended up bringing Spain and Russia kind of closer together because of the way in which Spain has a lot of infrastructure to handle natural gas that Russia... And regardless, I can think of a time in history when Russia and Spain were closer as a part of like the Napoleonic Wars, because that was just an advantageous allegiance at that time, and it just made sense. I struggle to think of a period where the U.S. has, even at its most isolationist, ever been this distant politically and diplomatically from Europe. That's the thing
pretty
I keep
remarkable.
Trying to get my head around.
Yeah, one of the things I want to end on.
Close.
Yeah, for the L's that we're taking, one of the things that I think is worth ending on probably is the G20 meeting that happened, that Trump chose to not send anyone from the U.S. to this. Again, further pushing ourselves out from 20 world leader countries that all gathered. And he ultimately, in a completely loser move, sent an envoy at the last minute to show up there, who was actually then locked out of the meeting and not allowed to attend the closing ceremony. But over and over.
That is really humiliating. That is really bad, dude.
And over and over throughout this.
Excited about the American Center of Humiliation, but not like that, dude.
They literally closed the door
really
on
bad.
us, and this was many of the European leaders. And
not looking good for old USA.
yeah, and over, if you were to play a drinking game during this meeting, if you were to drink to them talking about multipolar world, you would have passed out within the first 10 minutes, I think, of this several hour long meeting. And they just kept bringing up, hey, this is a multipolar world that is emerging. We don't really know what to do with that, but we want to encourage multilateralism in this crazy time.
Right.
And they are in the full recognition that is a multipolar, not a unipolar world anymore.
Some people are being kind of difficult, so I guess we're doing this multipolar world thing. Oof. Yep. Let's get a loser for Uncle Sam going. Let's get a loser sound effect for Uncle Sam.
You enjoyed that from the entire end of the Cold War. But that time where the rest of the world recognized that it was a unipolar world, that's over.
Well, wait, hold on, guys. Remember the Cold War? What if we do more Cold War? That's the thing they're going with. Is like, what if we did more Cold War, guys? It's like, no, we're gonna buy the Chinese soybeans.
We're gonna shut the door on you, and
we're gonna buy Chinese goods. They're even outsourcing the soybeans to our peasants. So, all right. I mean, hey, I want to also end the show with shout outs to our listeners from Hexbear. Thank you for all of the folks who are listening. Comrade Shark. Thank you if any of the haters are listening too. I'm not going to name check you, but you know who you are. You're a hater, and I look forward to talking about your podcast and how good it is. And then you're gonna feel bad because I was nice about your fucking podcast, you fucking dweebs. So yeah, you're trying to have some fun with your friends like we're doing here. And also, I hope everyone, even though it's an indigenous colonizer holiday, had a nice time with their family on Thanksgiving during the time off that we are usually allowed by our respective jobs. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And this will probably come out a little closer to Christmas too. So happy end of December
Christmas
holiday for whatever you celebrate. Yeah, Christmas,
I shouldn't
Hanukkah.
say Christmas.
Yeah, we're going to war on Christmas this year, actually.
It's a war on Christmas. Yeah, there's a war on Christmas.
And we're a part of it?
If you don't know that, Fox has been advising you, actually. Fox News has been letting you know that you might have to tighten your purse strings. You might have to not get Granny a gift. You might have to not ship gifts, only give them to personal people that you actually see in your life, and only give them to people under the age of 18, because that is the cheery Christmas spirit.
Yep. Make sure you have your guns for war on Christmas. Also, if you didn't get into any arguments with your family and uncles and stuff over Thanksgiving about gamers' rights, then what are you talking about, really? What if you're not sticking up for gamers' rights? That's the political issue I'm going to hit hard on next time we go conservative. I'm going to be really big on gamers' rights. Dude, it's what really matters.
We're going to go deep in that gamer.
We're going full gamer. But I'm going to sign off. I think it's time to go. But thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, keep on Comrade Shark. And to everyone else listening, we appreciate you. Thank you for coming. And yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. We'll talk to you later, gang. Peace. Bye.
Budget. You need a plan. Also remember, adults don't need gifts, okay? Focus on the people in your life who are age 3 to 18. Grandma doesn't need slippers. If they don't live by you, don't get them a gift. Now's not the time to spend and break the bank sending packages across the country, Dana. Focus on the people in your life, ages 3 to 18.
We don't highlight the means, so we settle for them greens. Yeah, highlight the trees when I send it to my knees. I don't sway with the breeze. They can't send me to my knees, yeah.